Now Jacob dwelt in the land where his father was a stranger, in the land of Canaan. These are the generations of Jacob. When Joseph was 70 years old, he kept cattle with his brother, and the child was with the sons of Bilhah, or with the sons of Silpha, his paternal wives. Joseph brought their father their statement. Israel valued Joseph more than all his sons, for he begatted him in his old age and made him a coat of many colors. When his brothers learned that their father loved him more than all his brothers, they hated him and could not speak peacefully to him. Joseph dreamed a dream and told it to his brothers, who hated him even more. He said to them, "Listen, please, to this dream I had. Behold, we were tying up the sheep in the middle of the field, and behold, my sheep got up and stood. And behold, your sheep came around and paid attention to my sheep." Then his brothers said to him, "What will you do? Will you reign over us and rule us, or will you have total dominion over us?" And they hated him even more, because of his dreams and his words. Then he dreamed another dream, and told it to his brothers, and said, "Behold, I had another dream, and behold, the sun and the moon and the other stars did honor to me." Then he told it to his father and his brothers, and his father rebuked him and said, "What is this dream that you have had? Should I and your mother and brothers come and lay on the ground before you?" His brothers questioned him, but his father noted the speech. Then his brothers went to guard the sheep of their fathers in Shechem. Israel said to Joseph, "Are you not your brothers in Shechem? Come, and I will send you to them." He answered him, "They are here." Then he said to him, "Go and see if your brothers are well, and if the flocks are prospering, and bring me news." So he sent him from the valley of Hebron, and he came to Shechem. Then a man found him. Behold, he was wandering in the field, and the man asked him, "What do you seek?" He answered, "I see my brothers. Tell me, I pray you, where they keep the sheep." The man answered, "They have departed from here, for I heard them say, 'Let us go to Dathan.'" So Joseph went after his brothers and found them in Dathan. When they saw him far away, before he reached them, they conspired against him to kill him. For they said to one another, "Behold, this dreamer comes. Come therefore, kill him and cast him into some pit, and we will say, 'An evil beast has killed him.' Then we will see what will come of his dreams." But when Reuben heard this, he took him out of their hands and said, "Do not kill him." And Reuben said to them, "Shed not blood, but cast him into this pit, which is in the wilderness, and put no hand in it." So he said to release him from their hands, and returned him to his father again. When Joseph had come to his brothers, they stripped Joseph of his cloak, the colorful cloak that he had on. They took him and threw him into the pit. The pit was empty, without water. Then they sat down to eat bread, and they lifted up their eyes and looked, and behold, there came a company of Ishmaelites from Gilead, with their camels laden with spices and balm and myrrh, and they were about to take them to Egypt. Then Judah said to his brothers, "What does it matter if we kill our brother, even if we keep his blood a secret? Come, sell him to the Ishmaelites, and do not let our hands rest on him, for he is our brother and our flesh." And his brothers obeyed. Then the Midian marchers passed by, went away, pulled Joseph out of the pit, and sold Joseph to the Ishmaelites for 20 pieces of silver, which they took Joseph to Egypt. Then Reuben went back to the pit and saw that Joseph was not in the pit. So he tore his clothes and turned to his brothers and said, "The child is not there, and where shall I go?" And they took Joseph's cloak and killed a kid goat and dipped the cloak in the blood. So they sent the colorful cloak, brought it to the father, and said to him, "This is what we have found. See now whether it is your son's cloak or not." He noticed it and said, "It is my son's cloak. An evil beast has killed him. Joseph is surely torn to pieces." Then Jacob tore his clothes, put sackcloth around his loins, and wept for long for his son. Then all his sons and all his daughters rose up to comfort him, but he would not be comforted, and said, "Surely I will go to the grave and mourn for my son." So his father wept for him. Then the Midianites left him in Egypt with Potiphar, an eunuch of Pharaoh and his chief steward. At that time, Judah departed from his brothers and went to a man named Hira, an Adulamite. Judah saw there the daughter of a man named Saul, a Canaanite. He took her as his wife and went in to her. She conceived and bore a son, whom she named Er. Then she conceived again and bore a son, whom she named Onan. And she again bore a son, whom she named Shelah. And Judah was in Sheship when she bore him. Then Judah took Er, his firstborn son, to wife, whose name was Tamar. Judah's firstborn, was evil in the eyes of the Lord. Therefore the Lord killed him. Then Judah said to Onan, "Go to your brother's wife, make yourself a kinsman to her, and beget an offspring for your brother." Onan knew that the seed would not be his, therefore when he went to his brother's wife, he poured it out on the ground, lest he should give a seed to his brother. In the eyes of the Lord it was an evil thing that he had done, therefore he killed him also. Then Judah said to Tamar, his daughter-in-law, "Remain a widow in your father's house until Shelah, my son, grows up." For he thought thus, "Or he will die like his brothers." So Tamar went to dwell in her father's house. Afterwards the daughter of Shaul, Judah's wife, also died. Then Judah, leaving mourning, went to his shepherds in Timnah, he and his neighbor Hira, the Adulamite. Judah said to Tamar, "Behold, your father in peace goes to Timnah to share his sheep." Then she took off her widow's garment and clothed herself with a cloth, and wrapped herself about herself, and slept in Pentanamnim, which is on the road to Timnah, because she knew that Shelah had grown up, and that she had not been given to him as a wife. When Judah saw her, he judged her to be a harlot, because of her face was covered. He turned to her and said, "Come, please let me lie with you," for he didn't know that she was his daughter in marriage. And she answered, "What will you give me to lie with me?" And he said, "I will send you a kid from the flock." And she answered, "Well, if you will give me a pledge, as long as you assent it to me." Then he said, "What is the pledge that I will give you?" And she answered, "Your seal and your cloak, and your staff that you have in your hand." So he gave it to her and lay down by her side. And she had a son by him. Then she got up and went and took off her sail and put on her widow's clothes. Then Judah sent a kid of goat by the hand of his neighbor, the Adulamite, to receive the pledge from the woman's hand, but he did not find her. Then the men of that place asked, "Where is the harlot that stood in Enaim by the way?" And they answered, "There is no prostitute here." He went again to Judah and said, "I cannot find her." And the men of the place also said, "There was no prostitute." Then Judah said, "Let me bring him to her, that we may not be ashamed. Behold, I have sent this kid, you have not found it." After 3 months, one said to Judah, "Tamar, your daughter-in-law, has prostituted herself, and behold, after she has prostituted herself, she had a great number of children." Then Judah said, "Bring her and have her burned." And when she was brought home, she sent word to her father-in-law by that man, because of whom these things have happened. "I am with child," and also said, "Look, I pray thee, whose are these things? The dress, the cloak, and the staff." Then Judah knew them and said, "She is more righteous than I, for she has done this because I did not give her to Shesh, my son." So he no longer lay with her. Now when the time came that she should be disappointed, behold, in her womb were twins. When the womb was in labor, the one stretched out his hand. The midwife took and tied a red braid around his hand, saying, "This one came out first." But when he withdrew his hand again, behold, his brother came out. And the midwife said, "How have you broken the breach about you?" Then his brother came out, who had a red braid on his hand, and his name was called Zarai. Now Joseph was led into Egypt, and Potiphar, an eunuch of the Pharaohs, and his chief steward, and an Egyptian, bought him at the hands of the Ishmaelites, who had led him there. The Lord was with Joseph, who prospered and stayed in the house of his master the Egyptian. His master knew that the Lord was with him, and that the Lord prospered all that he did in his hands. So Joseph stood well before him and ministered to him. He made him a head of his house, and put all that he had into his hand. Since he had made him head of the house and all of that he possessed, the Lord blessed the house of the Egyptians in favor of Joseph. And the blessings of the Lord was on all that he had in the house and in the fields. Therefore Joseph was left in his hands all that he had, and was not satisfied with anything that he had with him except the bread that he ate. And Joseph was proud and well-fed person. After these things, the wife of his master cast her eyes upon Joseph and said to him, "Come with me." But he refused and said to his master's wife, "Behold, my master does not know what he has in his house with me, but he has entrusted everything he has to my hands. There is no greater man in this house than I, and he has withheld nothing from me, but only you, because you are his wife. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?" Although she spoke from day to Joseph, he paid no heed to her, and would not stay with her or be in her company. Then one certain day Joseph came into the house to attend to his business. There was no man of the house in the house. Then she seized him by the robe, saying, "Sleep with me." But he, having left the robe in her hand, fled and let him out. When she saw that he had left his robe in her hand and had run away, she called the men of her house and said to them, "Behold, he brought in a Jew to mock me. He came to me to sleep with me." But I cried with a loud voice. When he heard that I raised my voice and wept, he left his robe with me, fled and carried it away. Then she spread her robe beside her until her lord returned home. And she told him these words, saying, "The servant of Hebrew, whom you brought with you, came in to me to mock me. But when I raised my voice and cried out, he left his robe with me and ran away." When his master heard his wife's words, which she related to him, saying, "Your servant has treated me in this way," his anger was kindled. And Joseph's master took him and put him in prison, in the place where the captives of the kings were shut up. And there he remained in prison. But the Lord was with Joseph, and showed him mercy, and made him well in the eyes of the masters of the prison. And the keeper of the prison committed all the prisoners who were in the prison to Joseph, and what they did there he did. And the keeper of the prison did not mind anything that was in his hand, for the Lord was with him. For whatever he did, the Lord prospered him. After these things, the butler of the king of Egypt and his baker offended their lord, the king of Egypt. Pharaoh became angry against his two officers, against the butler and the baker. Therefore he had them locked up in the house of his chief steward, in the prison, and in the place where Joseph was bound. The chief steward put Joseph in charge of guarding them, and he kept them in check. And they remained at war for some time, and they both dreamed a dream, each his dream in one night, each according to the interpretation of his dream. Both the butler and the baker of the king of Egypt were shut up in the prison. When Joseph came in to them in the morning and looked at them, behold, they were sad. And yes, Pharaoh's officers who were with him in his master's war. Why are you so sad today? They answered him, we have dreamed a dream, and there is no one to interpret it. Then Joseph said to them, are those not interpretations of God? Tell me now. Then the chief butler told his dream to Joseph and said to him, in my dream, behold, there was a vine before me. The vine had 3 branches, and when it sprouted, it came forth, and a cluster of grapes ripened. And I had Pharaoh's cup in my hand. I took the grapes and squeezed them into the Pharaoh's cup and gave the cup into Pharaoh's hand. Then Joseph said to him, this is the interpretation. The 3 breaks are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh shall lift up your head, and he shall give you back your charge. And you shall give Pharaoh a cup into his hand, as you once did, when you were his steward. But remember me when thou art in good condition, and I pray thee, give me grace, and make mention of me to the Pharaoh, that he may bring me out of his house. For I have been carried away for the theft from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing for which they should put me in prison. When the chief baker saw that the interpretation was good, he said to Joseph, it also occurred to me that I had 3 white baskets on my head, and the highest baskets were meats of all kinds cooked, for Pharaoh and his birds ate them from the basket on my head. Then Joseph answered and said, this is his interpretation. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days Pharaoh shall take off your head and hang you on a tree, and the birds shall eat your flesh. And on the 3rd day, which was Pharaoh's birthday, he made a feast to all his servants. And among his servants he lifted up the head of the chief butler and the head of the chief baker. And he returned the chief butler to his butler, who had lifted the cup into Pharaoh's hand. But he hanged the chief baker, as Joseph had interpreted to him. Nevertheless, the chief butler did not remember Joseph, but forgot him.